Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're opening up a pretty fascinating case file. We're going to embark on this gritty, deep dive investigation into literally the most mysterious and, let's be honest, deceptive place on Earth, the human mind. If you've ever felt like, you're doing everything right, but you're still just hitting a brick wall, or maybe you find yourself constantly frustrated by how the world operates, well, you are absolutely not alone. And we're going to unpack exactly why that happens.
To really set the stakes for this investigation, check out this brilliant quote from Philip K. Dick. He said, "Reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away." And honestly, that hits the nail on the head. No matter what we think or what we desperately wish were true, reality always wins. It's kind of like crashing your car into a train. That train of objective reality, it just doesn't care about your feelings, your beliefs, or your expectations. When our internal perceptions don't line up with the real world, we crash right into it. And, well, we're the ones who end up getting hurt.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1. The scene of the crash.
So every investigation needs a crime scene, right? And for us, that scene is the continuous, honestly painful collision between what we expect to happen and what actually happens. The root cause of this crash is the massive gap between perception and reality. Pain is basically the result of a mismatch between these two. Think about it like walking into a closed glass door, because you firmly, absolutely perceived it to be open. You totally believed the way was clear, you acted on that belief, and bang, you hurt your nose. Reality didn't suddenly change just because your perception was wrong. And much of our daily anxiety and disappointment works in the exact same way. We are just out there walking into invisible glass doors because of our faulty perceptions.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this staggering number, 85%. So the author of our source material took this psychological test during some early counseling to figure out his degree of self-deception. And the result? 85%. He was literally lying to himself 85% of the time. René Descartes famously gave us this idea that we're fully aware of the contents of our own minds. But man, that is a dangerous misconception. This gap between what is actually happening and what we tell ourselves, that is exactly where massive self-deception takes place.
Moving on to Section 2, the unreliable witness. Since we're apparently constantly deceiving ourselves, we really have to interrogate the prime suspect here, which is your own mind. It operates as this shadowy, deeply flawed filter that is just constantly providing false testimony about the world around you. So here's our lineup of the usual suspects. These are common cognitive errors that totally distort our reality. First up, we've got mind reading. That's the belief that you actually know what other people are thinking, which usually means assuming they have negative motives toward you. Next is emotional reasoning. This is the trap of believing that just because you feel something, it absolutely must be an accurate reflection of reality. Then there's magical thinking, which is this wild illusion that your thoughts or wishes alone can somehow bypass the literal laws of cause and effect in the real world. And finally, labeling. That's when we reduce insanely complex situations or entire human beings down to a single, usually negative word. These suspects, they all work together to basically pull you away from reality.
Listen, if you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, let it be the profound statement right here. Your thoughts are not facts. They just aren't. They are merely guesses, interpretations, and mental constructions. Basically, they're the stories your unreliable witness is just making up on the fly to try and make sense of the world. And when you blindly buy into these stories, when you treat them as undeniable, hard facts, you are actively creating the root of your own suffering.
And that leads us to Section 3. The map is not the territory.
So, the crucial point is this core philosophical breakthrough coined by the scholar Alfred Korzybski. The map is not the territory. See, your thoughts and beliefs, they're just a map of the world. They're models. But just like a paper map is obviously not the actual dirt, mountains, and rivers that it represents, your mental representations are not identical to objective reality. And when we confuse our little mental map with the real, actual world, we make massive, painful errors. It's quite literally like going to a restaurant and trying to eat the menu instead of the meal. And we can actually see this exact same truth echoed across entirely different cultures. While Korzybski gave us the Western semantic theory, this ancient Eastern Zen proverb just perfectly captures the same idea. The finger that points at the moon is not the moon. You see, our language, our labels, our neat little categories, they chop up the undivided whole of reality into fragments. Words are super useful tools for pointing at things, sure, but if you start mistaking the pointing finger for the glorious glowing moon itself, well, you completely miss the truth.
All right, let's look at Section 4, 3 kinds of truth.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we need to sort out our evidence. To stop crashing into reality, we can look at this through the metaphor of 3 baseball umpires.
The first umpire, he relies on objective truth, hard facts and evidence. He says, I call them as they are. That's the real world, totally independent of us. Now, the second umpire relies on subjective truth, which is personal experience and perception. He says, I call them as I see them. Now, that might be true for you, but maybe not for the person sitting next to you. Then we have the third umpire. He relies on constructed truth, meaning societal rules and norms. He says, they ain't nothing until I call them. And this is the kind of truth created entirely by human culture and shared agreement.
But here is exactly where the danger lies. Confusing subjective truth, which is how you feel or see things, with objective truth, which is how things actually are, causes massive suffering. It is a profound thinking error. Because when you mix up these truths, you make your mental map extremely vulnerable. You suddenly become susceptible to manipulation, you fall for false information, and honestly, you end up making terrible life decisions. Why? Because you're basing your actions on how you desperately wish the world worked, rather than how it actually fundamentally operates.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 5, Redrawing Your Map.
Okay, so now that we know our minds are out here creating these faulty maps, how do we actually test our thoughts against reality to, stop the suffering? Well, it starts with metacognition. That's just a fancy word for the skill of thinking about your thinking. You basically have to act like the lead detective on your own case. Step 1, you step outside yourself to just quietly observe and notice your thoughts without getting totally sucked into them. Step 2, you interrogate the witness. You actually ask your thought, hey, is this true? Am I seeing things as they really are, or just as I fear them to be? And then step 3, check that thought against objective reality. Go looking for actual hard evidence to correct your cognitive biases. Because when you start actively correcting your map, the way you experience change completely transforms. There are really 3 scenarios for change here. Number 1, you can just keep crashing into reality by clinging to those bad maps. Number 2, you can sit back and let reality crash into you through unexpected, painful events. Or you can choose the third, proactive path. You actually participate in reality. When your internal map aligns with the external territory, you finally stop fighting what simply is. You become partners with reality. You're gliding on its invisible currents, kind of like an eagle catching the wind.
So I really want you to pause for a second and ask yourself this critical question. Are you living in the map or the territory? When you're feeling anxious or angry or just completely stuck, are you reacting to objective reality? Or are you just reacting to some misinterpretation you drew onto your mental map? Because more often than not, the problem you think you're facing, it doesn't actually exist in the real world at all. It literally only exists in your flawed model of it.
We're going to conclude our explainer today with this ultimate grounding realization. Just like that little red dot you see on a mall directory, you are here. It's a statement that directly links the map right back to the physical territory. It's a reminder to anchor yourself. Not in your memories of the past, not in all those anxieties about the future, but right here in the present moment and in objective reality. Look, the universe is vastly complex and your mind is an absolutely incredible tool. But you gotta remember to put the map down sometimes and just experience the world as it truly is. So as you step back out into the world today, ask yourself, what invisible glass doors are you finally ready to stop walking into?